So I thought I'd discuss how to install an electric fuel pump, because it's pretty important that you install it correctly. So this is just my old farm truck, so it's a little bit of a backyard job, but the idea is there. So anyway, first what you want to do, usually electric fuel pumps are installed back by the gas tank, or it's preferred that they're at a lower point in the fuel system than the gas tank, because they're designed to push fuel and not pull it. So anyway, I got my pump mounted right here, and this is just a crap $30 pump from Jegs or something like that. So anywho, how I have it set up here is that, well, this one required that I'm out at a 45-degree angle for some reason, but you know, I don't think that's really that important. I just did it just because. So ignore the tape here holding my fuel lines from rubbing. So anyway, I just cut a spot out in the fuel system here, and then I ran kind of a loop-de-loop since I couldn't really cut the corner that sharp. So, and I ran another loop-de-loop out of the pump into the fuel line. Obviously you could do this a lot better, but again, this is just the farm vehicle. So anywho, you can see that that's mounted in the lowest point. And as far as your wiring goes, I got it ran up into the cab there, so we'll climb up and take a look. So anywho, as long as you mount your fuel pump lower than your gas tank, it'll last. Now how I have mine set up is on this little switch that was already in the truck long before I had it, but it only works when my key is in the ignition position. So and again, you know, I just wired this into the fuse panel, which, you know, it's probably smarter to do it a better way than that, but anyway, it only gets power when the ignition is on, so I don't really have to worry about the switch. I can't accidentally leave it on when I'm not driving the vehicle, so that's really important to wiring. And what's nice about having it on a switch instead of just wired to your ignition system is that when you go to put your vehicle away or not drive it for a long time, what you can do is actually turn it off and keep running your vehicle and run all the fuel out of your carburetor, so you don't get a bunch of gummed up fuel in your carburetor after sitting. That's what I do every winter. I let it run and run all the fuel out of the carburetor, then I spray fogging oil down the carburetor vents to keep the diaphragms in good shape. But pretty much from there, then I just run it up to a pressure regulator, because it's real imperative that you run consistent pressure. So, and I have it set to about 4 to 5 psi. That's pretty good spot. So you want to have your pressure at a point where when the fuel in the line expands from heat, which it will, so you want to have it set to a point that when it expands, it's not enough to blow the needle and seat open. So I usually have them set around 4 to 5s. When they expand, they might be up to 6 or 7 at any point in time, and that's still not enough to blow the needle and seat open. And 5 psi is plenty enough to drive on, unless you're at the drag strip. But anywho, so that's kind of how I installed mine. You know, I always recommend using a regulator on all carbureted vehicles. It's just you know, I'll post a link in here to my another one of my videos explaining the importance of regulators, how it helps to prevent carb flooding and carb, you know, issues. But anywho, that's really all you have to do. So again, make sure that your fuel pump is at a lower system than your gas tank. I always think it's a good idea to, again, run a switch that only works when your ignition is on, so you can't accidentally leave your pump on. So, and then I just run that on a toggle switch so I can shut it off and run the carburetor out of fuel if I want to, and then pretty much run it to a regulator and set your regulator to 4 or 5 psi, You know, make sure you have a pressure gauge with that, like I got a little one down there. And then there you have it. Pretty much you'll be all set. And I really like using electric pumps. They really keep the fuel cool because they don't run off the side of your engine here, and that arm that runs off your cam on your mechanical fuel pump gets hot. That whole pump gets hot and your fuel gets hot and it expands, and it's just not as good of a situation. So electric fuel pumps, I really like using them. So anywho, there you have it.